Hello students. In this module, we will be talking about one of the world's worst chemical disaster which happened in Bhopal of Madhya Pradesh of India in the midnight of 2nd December 1984. Today we will be discussing all the aspects, what happened, when it happened, how it happened, what were the effects, everything in details we will be discussing here. Now to start with, why this Bhopal plant, or you can say the pesticide manufacturing plant, was there in Bhopal. Now, after independence, India was facing severe food shortage, food crisis because of the huge population. India was also a part of that green revolution so that we can increase the food production and at the same time feed our growing population. So as an initiative of that, we wanted to shift our agricultural practices. We wanted to change the agricultural practices, and there were requirements of lots of high-yielding crop varieties, pesticides, insecticides, and fertilizers. And UCC, United Carbide Corporation from USA, they were one of the largest pesticide manufacturing plant or industry at that time. So they gave the proposal of establishing one plant which will manufacture the pesticide, and Indian government welcomed that proposal and happily given the grant for that. They gave the permission for establishing. Now this particular place, Bhopal, was chosen as the site for this plant because Bhopal is in central India where the resources are available, and at the same time it has very good connectivity with the rest of the parts of the country. Now Bhopal gas disaster, actually when it happened, it was the midnight when people were all sleeping. Now what is the reason, what were the chemical reactions or what were the chemical products? We will be discussing all these things in details. Now in the particular plant, this product, which is carbaryl, the brand name of UCC's brand name was Savin. Now this carbaryl was manufactured, or Savin we can say, was manufactured in two steps in this plant of Bhopal. In the first step, methylamine and phosgene, they react with each other to produce the methyl isocyanate, which is the famous MIC, methyl isocyanate. It is the intermediate. And in the second reaction, this MIC reacts with alpha naphthol to form the final product, that is carbaryl, which comes under the brand name of UCC as Savin. It was a very good pesticide, and it was having lesser impact than that of DDT, and also it was having good pest control ability. So this was gladly accepted by the farmers. But in the late 70s and early 80s, the demand gradually decreased. Now, demand decreased, that got accumulated in those plants. I will come in the details of that, but before that, let me first discuss a little bit of properties of methyl isocyanate. Why it is dangerous, why it is toxic, we need to know that. It is highly volatile and vaporizes very easily. It is chemically very reactive and highly toxic. Once someone is inhaling that MIC vapor, then it can cause pulmonary edema, it can cause respiratory tract irritation, problems related to our eyes, related to our throat, or related to our lungs, sweating, gastritis. It can even damage our lungs and eyes to great extent. Not only this, MIC has also been reported to have ability of mutation in the mammalian or in the bacterial cell cultures. Now the plant which was established in Bhopal for producing this Savin, now this plant initially before this disaster, there were also some prior leaks also, the incidences of leaks. What were those incidents? Actually, in the year 1976, two local trade unions, they reported that it is causing some kind of pollution. After that, in the year 1981, while a worker, he was working over there, he got exposed to this phosgene suddenly, and out of panic, he removed his gas mask, and after 72 hours, he died. In January 1882, 24 workers, they were exposed to phosgene gas. They were not having those safety masks on their faces. And then in February also there was MIC leak, and 18 workers, they got exposed to this MIC gas. In August 1982, a chemical engineer, he got badly hurt. He got burnt, or means almost 30% of his body parts due to MIC vapor, MIC exposure. In October also, people means MIC supervisor, he was trying to stop the leak somewhere along with the workers. They got the exposure and they got the injuries. And in 1983 and 84, sometimes there were leak of these gases. What were these gases? Methyl isocyanate, phosgene, and other gases. Sometimes it was individual gas and sometimes in combination also. Now let us come to the factors which lead to the Bhopal gas tragedy. The first thing, the liquid MIC was stored in 3 tanks, E610, E611 and E619 in the plants. Now it was ordered that the plant, those storage tanks should not have this MIC more than 50% of its capacity, and it was also having nitrogen in vapor form, pressurized nitrogen in vapor form, which actually help in pumping out the MIC from those storage tanks. Now, as I have already mentioned that in the early 80s, the demand for savin gradually decreased. But the formation, the manufacturing was going on, and the accumulation, therefore it got accumulated, MIC got accumulated in this storage tank. Now, in the meantime, this tank E610 lost the ability to effectively contain most of its nitrogen gas pressure. And the liquid MIC that was inside, it was almost 42 tons of liquid MIC was there that couldn't be pumped out. That was the initiation, means when the problem started. Next, as per the report, water has entered in E610 via a side pipe. Now, MIC reacts with water vigorously. It gives rise to highly exothermic reaction, that is, huge amount of heat is liberated. Because the tank already contained 42 tons of MIC and water was got added to that. So this runaway exothermic reaction was there, generating huge amount of heat. The chemical reaction when started, that got accelerated by the presence of some contaminants, high ambient temperature and other factors. Now, there were some safety devices in the plant. What were they? The refrigeration system, which was meant for keeping the storage tank cool so that the temperature does not rise, number one. Next, the flare tower was there, which was supposed to burn the MIC gas if it leaks out, and the vent scrubber was there. But all of them were not under proper working condition. Either they were under maintenance or they were partially working. That was not sufficient to stop this large-scale devastation. The flare tower was intended to burn any escaping MIC. The refrigeration system was designed to cool the MIC storage tank, but these were not actually working properly, and the gas scrubber, which was not working, was too tiny to handle the large-scale disaster as it happened on that night of 2nd December. By the night, the pressure inside that storage tank started increasing, and it was almost 5 times the normal pressure. Then gradually the atmospheric venting of MIC gas started. Workers working in that area, they started smelling MIC, but before they could understand what has happened, MIC venting started in huge scale. Huge amount of MIC started coming out of the plant, and the majority of the city dwellers who were exposed to the MIC gas first came to know. There was no alarming actually. They first came to know, actually they heard the disturbance outside. From their sleep, they woke up, they came outside and they started coughing, they choking, breathlessness, all this when they inhaled huge amount of methyl isocyanate gas. Now, whatever we have learned till now, let us quickly do a revision through a short question. There are 4 options for that. Now, the question is, Bhopal gas tragedy of 1984 took place because methyl isocyanide reacted with. The options are number 1, ammonia, number 2, DDT, number 3, water, and number 4, carbon dioxide. As I have mentioned that the reaction of methyl isocyanate with water is highly exothermic reaction. So this exothermic reaction generates huge amount of heat, which in turn made the temperature of that storage tank high, and that storage tank was not supposed to be that hot. Cooling system should have been working, but it did not happen, and finally we had faced the disaster which has later on come to know as world's worst chemical disaster ever. So the correct answer will be water, because water plus MIC, it will be exothermic reaction, and which led to the increase in temperature and pressure and subsequently this disaster. Let us now try to sum up that what were the reasons, as we have already discussed in details, what were the main reasons that led to this devastating incident in Bhopal. So to start with, we can say the contributing factors. The first one, reduction in the safety management. That was one major problem, because the safety devices which were there, those were not working properly. Insufficient maintenance. Many parts of the plant were under maintenance and which required maintenance also, so that has to be done. And inadequate emergency plan and lack of skilled and trained workers or operators. If we want to sum up the reasons or the factors contributing to Bhopal gas disaster, we want to talk on that. Now, let me come to the fact that people, as I have told, the first reaction was people when they got exposed to this gas. It was not a single gas. Mostly it was MIC, methyl isocyanate, but it was actually a gas cloud which was consisting of other gases like chloroform, phosgene, methylamine, etc. Those were present in the gas cloud. Now, what was the problem with the gas cloud? The gas cloud was very dense because of its density, and it is very heavy. So it is heavier than atmospheric air, so it comes closer to the ground when released. Now what happened when people got exposed to that? Suddenly they got in the inhalation of that gas cloud. They started breathlessness, choking, coughing, irritation in their throat, their respiratory tract, even their eyes had burning sensation. So this gas cloud mainly, I will also explain it later when human effects I'll explain. This gas cloud mainly affected children because they are of short height, because the density was closer to the surface of the earth. So many children, lakhs and thousands of children were affected. Coming to the devastation. The devastation was simply huge devastation. It was midnight, it was winter night, people were sleeping, and suddenly they got this shock. They woke up and they inhaled, and in that shock they started running here and there. They started moving out of the town. In that, the more they ran, the more they inhaled this poisonous, this toxic gas compounds or this toxic gas cloud. Now, the devastation, as per the reports, the number of immediate deaths were at least 3,800 and caused significant morbidity and premature death for many more thousands were having this morbidity and associated health hazards. There were mass funerals and cremation. All around was sadness, people crying, people requesting for help, people shouting with pain and shouting with sorrow everywhere. And then a government affidavit in the year 2006, it stated that the leak caused around 550,000 injuries, including around 38,000 temporary and partial injuries and around 3,900 severely and permanent disabling injuries. 36 wards were marked as gas affected wards, which were having the population of more than 5,20,000. About 2,000 animals, the carcasses of 2,000 animals were disposed of. Actually, not only human beings, animals, plants, and not only living organisms, the soil, the water, the air, everything was affected. The toxin was all around. And as thousands of people died, thousands of people got the injury of that exposure, then immediately what were the acute or immediate health impacts? First, let us know that, then I'll come to the long-term health impacts. So the immediate health impacts, those were coughing, severe eye irritation, irritation in the throat or respiratory tract, breathlessness, stomach pain, vomiting. And the healthcare system immediately got overloaded. Thousands of people are running to them for help, for treatment, and the healthcare system medical system was not at all ready for that, and they hadn't have the clear knowledge that how to deal with the MIC exposure or MIC inhalation. They have not treated such patients earlier. That was the major problem. Now, as I have told, many children were affected. Around 2 lakh children were affected. They got exposed to this toxic gas. And another event that happened, that was on 16th of December, tanks E611 and 619, they were emptied of the remaining MIC. As I have told that there were 3 storage tanks. So that led to second mass evacuation from Bhopal. We will move on to what happened. The health impacts, the methyl isocyanate, as it entered the respiratory system, it started affecting the people irrespective of age. Be it the children or adults or aged people, all were affected. And the cloud, already mentioned that it was dense, closer to ground. The more they started running, fleeing away, they inhaled more and more of this toxic gas. Now, thousands of people died due to pulmonary edema, refluxogenic circulatory collapse, choking. Now, after that, formal statement, it was made that the air, water, vegetation, and foodstuffs were safe in the city. This was made, but it was strict warning was given about the consumption of fishes, because that gas was absorbed in the water also. Water was also contaminated, and the soil was also contaminated. Now, the long-term effects. These were the acute impacts which were immediately after this crisis. Now, in the long run, people suffered a lot. Those who were the survivors, those who could manage to survive this devastation, they also had a long suffering. What they had, starting with the eyes, chronic conjunctivitis, scars on cornea, early cataract, and sometimes blindness also. And respiratory tract, they have pulmonary fibrosis, they had obstructive or restrictive diseases, chronic bronchitis. These were very common in the survivors, gas survivors. Neurological impairment was there, numbness was there, and another important thing that was noticed was physiological problem, that is post-traumatic stress disorder. After they faced these disaster, they were suffering from that, and children also suffered a lot. Especially, it was observed women and men, those who were exposed to that gas cloud, later on when they had their babies, the babies were having skeletal deformities, they were having mental retardedness. It was observed, and reports came later on. The rates of stillborn babies and rates of neonatal mortality rose by 300% and 200% respectively, which was simply huge. The soil and water, as I have told, has also been badly contaminated. Many animals were found died here and there. The trees, after a few days of that accident, the trees were found were bare. The leaves were not there anymore. So the soil, water, as they were contaminated, they were not fit for use also. As per a report published in 2014, the survivors of this disaster still suffer from serious medical conditions, including birth defects for subsequent generations and increased rates of cancer and tuberculosis. So the disposal of the toxic which was present in the plant, it was really a challenge, and that was also posing threat to the survivors of this particular accident. Now, what were the impacts? Let me start with the environmental impact. Both the groundwater as well as the soil got contaminated with these toxins. Over 2,000 animals who were consuming, those who inhaled the gas, they died. The crops which were standing crops, they also got harmful impacts of that, and within a few days the trees were bare. And finally, all around Bhopal, the situation was devastating. Human beings, animals, soil, land, soil, water, everything was having the toxins. The government of India passed the Bhopal Gas Disaster Act that gave government rights to represent victims whether or not in India. In the US federal court, lawsuits were brought against UCC. Now, the court once recommended that UCC should give as compensation to the victims between $5 million to $10 million, and UCC agreed to pay $5 million. But the Indian government rejected the offer and demanded for 3.3 billion US dollars instead as a compensation for the victims. UCC agreed to pay finally 470 million US dollar as the insurance sum and the interest in the full and final settlement in the year 1989. Later, UCC wanted to sell out their share of UCIL, that is Union Carbide India Limited. Supreme Court directed them that they should give the finance a multi-speciality hospital of 500 beds which will take care of the gas survivors and also carry on the treatment of the victims. So Bhopal Memorial Hospital and Research Center BMHRC was inaugurated in the year 1998 and which was obliged to give free treatment and free healthcare services to the disaster survivors for 8 years. US court actually rejected the blaming UCC for causing the water pollution and the soil pollution around the plant, and they did not take that responsibility of the degradation of soil and land that has been caused due to this tragedy or this gas leak. The groundwater was found to be contaminated, it was reported. So Indian government took the initiative, Indian Supreme Court ordered the state government to supply clean drinking water to the residents of that area. Now what are the health care that were given or people were, government and state, central government and other NGOs were trying to help the victims? Government of India actually focused on increasing the number of hospitals. Hospital-based services would definitely be very helpful for the survivors because they needed continuous treatment because of their various types of temporary or permanent injuries. And Bhopal Memorial Hospital and Research Center, which was inaugurated in 1998, was giving free service for 8 years for all the victims. Added to that, Sambhavna Trust, which is a charitable trust, which was registered in the year 1995, they also provide both modern and Ayurvedic treatment for the gas victims. And 8 mini units were also opened like outreach health centers where people can get their treatment from those places. Since the leak of gas, many private practitioners also increased in Bhopal and in that area because people required continuous treatment for their injuries. Whatever we have learned till now, let us try to sum up a little bit. Now, while trying to sum up, let us quickly solve a question. What is the question? What were the contributing factors for the Bhopal gas disaster 1984? Their reduction of safety management, lack of trained workers, inadequate emergency action plans, and insufficient maintenance. And number D is all of this. Yes, if you are thinking it is D, then you are absolutely correct. It is D because all these are the contributing factors. These are means lack of safety management. It was there, the safety devices which were there, but they were not working properly. Somewhere under servicing, somewhere under maintenance, and somewhere was malfunctioning. So safety measurements were not properly taken. Lack of trained workers. Trained workers were also not there. So that was another problem. And finally, inadequate emergency action plan. What to do if something happens? Then what should be immediately done? What should be the first step if gas leakage is there? So that plan was not put forward, or that plan was not visible, and insufficient maintenance. Many parts of the plant were under maintenance or required maintenance which were not being done. So finally, the correct answer is D, which includes all these three options, and D is for all of this. So the correct answer is all of this. I hope up to this, whatever we are doing after doing this question also, we are getting the idea of the Bhopal gas disaster, and we are trying to understand the almost, we have completed the parts, and here we will be talking about environmental rehabilitation, economic rehabilitation, how people managed, what assistance government gave, or what rehabilitation steps were taken. Now let us come to the rehabilitation. Now immediate economic rehabilitation was given. Relief measures started in 1985. Food was distributed, ration cards were distributed, widow pension was provided, one-time ex gratia payment was there. In the year 1990, interim relief was also paid to every one of the family who were born before that disaster, and final compensation, including that interim relief, was given for personal injuries and death claims. And in the year 2010, Union Cabinet of India approved an aid package for the victims of this disaster. Now, coming to the occupational and habitation rehabilitation, flats or 2-storied, 4-stories was made for victims who were there, and 33 of the 50 planned work sheds of gas victims started. And also, Madhya Pradesh government invested in the special industrial area Bhopal in the year 1986. What are some of the lessons and observations, what we have learned from it, from this disaster? Quickly, let me give you an overview of that. Bhopal Gas Disaster helped the world in raising safety awareness within chemical industries. Many companies and universities started incorporating process safety into their training curriculum also. Now, storage of toxic substances was also revolutionized after this particular tragedy, and safety devices in the chemical plants should be properly working always. Regular and effective maintenance is very crucial for plant setting, and also design of proper emergency plan as well as response in case of any chemical toxic release is very important. So we have got these observations which will definitely help us in the long run to save life, and so that we do not face such kind of industrial disaster or chemical disaster again in the world.